My name is Meg Tuohey. Together we'll gather wisdom from a wide range of voices, thought leaders and seekers just like you. Through individual stories, we'll explore multiple categories of wisdom and uncover how the stripes of our experiences, both joyful and challenging and all that lies in between, intertwine to create a rich tapestry of life. So whether you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. This is Wisdom Stripes. Welcome to the Wisdom Stripes podcast, where we explore the profound journeys of individuals who've emerged from life's challenges with hard-earned wisdom and resilience. I'm your host, Meg Tuohey, and I'm thrilled to share that this podcast is brought to you by the transformative program, The Wisdom Lab. If you're feeling stuck in painful patterns, desperately seeking a breakthrough, and yearning for the tools to shatter emotional barriers and reclaim your power, the Wisdom Lab is your answer. In just 4 hours, you'll discover how to tap into your inner wisdom, turn confusion into clarity, and unlock the profound personal growth you've been craving. No more band-aid solutions or surface-level advice. This is about deep, lasting transformation from the inside out. Ready to embark on this life-changing journey? Head to the show notes for an exclusive link to learn more. Let's unleash your wisdom together. Welcome to Wisdom Stripes. Today's guest is Marcela Navarrete. Marcela is a founder, an activist, and a podcast host. And today she's with us to share about her experience with Lyme disease, where she was having seizures multiple times a day and losing her motor skills. Marcela talks us through how she reframed work around her chronic illness. On her podcast, Ambition Unleashed, she interviews entrepreneurs who share insights and strategies gained from their lives in business. Marcela, thank you for joining me on Wisdom Stripes, where we are your no-nonsense, fierce fairy godmothers, turning pain and confusion into clarity and confidence. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Meg. I'm so honored to be here on the show, and you're amazing and such a blessing. So thank you.
That is the kindest thing. Now, speaking of blessings, Marcela, we always start with the same question for our guests, and that is, what wisdom would you like a listener to come away with today?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that one of the most important things I've learned is there's power in vulnerability. And so I believe in the listeners understanding that there is so much power in just being vulnerable and being who they are and not feeling they have to pretend that everything's okay when it's not. And I think that when they let their community know that they need help and they need something, they'll realize how many people they have on their support team that they didn't even know existed. And so I just think I think it's a beautiful thing to be okay being vulnerable.
We have heard a little bit in the intro about your experience with chronic Lyme disease, and I imagine that is one of your battle scars. Could you share with us what your battle scars are, how you understand the wisdom that you hold?
Absolutely. So in 2015, I woke up one day struggling to walk, struggling to talk, and I had no idea what was wrong. I went to the doctor and they couldn't figure it out. And so I just progressively kept getting worse and worse. And then I got to the point where I couldn't even stay awake. I would just fall over wherever I was and people would have to carry my body. And I finally found a holistic doctor in Southern California who diagnosed me with chronic Lyme disease and put me on a path of healing. But it was quite the journey. It was not an easy path, and it was definitely not a quick path.
No, and there is more talk around Lyme disease than there ever has before, and certainly it's made some mainstream media. I'm thinking particularly about Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, where we had one of the main protagonists on the show with Lyme disease, and then her children also had Lyme disease. So there are famous faces who are talking about it, and yet it is still a really quite non-known condition. Could you talk to us about what it means to have Lyme disease and what it means to have chronic Lyme disease?
So it becomes chronic once it's stayed in your body a certain length of time, and that's usually about 30 days. And so with Lyme disease, there's often no bullseye rash the way people assume there is. I did not have it. And so you don't know that you have it until it becomes chronic. So until it's been in your system for many years, oftentimes that's when you find out that you have it. So that's what they consider it to be, chronic. But the CDC does not recognize chronic Lyme disease as a real disease. So they recognize Lyme disease and they treat that with antibiotics, but they do not recognize chronic Lyme disease. So it's very difficult even getting a doctor to recognize that that's what you have. And so you're sort of just going in circles like a hamster trying to find an answer. And then, you usually find out once it's too late, and once it's chronic, it affects everyone in different ways. So for me, it was mostly my motor skills. And I developed seizures every hour of every day. I didn't know that they were seizures because they weren't your standard grand mal seizures that you see like in the movies. I did have those, but those were perhaps when I was exposed to bright lights or loud sounds. But on an hourly basis, I was just having different types of seizures that were stemming from my nervous system. So I have triggers. So like if I have too much sugar, it can trigger a seizure. If I have, I have a 3-point system. And so I know if I have 2 triggers, I'll most definitely go into a seizure. If I have one trigger, then I have to try to avoid not having any others. And it's lack of sleep. It's too much stress. Sometimes it feels like it's everything under the sun that can trigger it, and you just figure out how to maneuver around it and how to be as normal as possible.
And so you mentioned earlier about the I think it was, what was the word that you used to describe the circle, where you get the...
So it's the bullseye rash.
Bullseye. I was looking for the word bullseye. That is, can you take us back a step further? How do you have Lyme disease transmitted to a human?
So it's transmitted through a tick bite.
A tick bite, yes.
Ticks are so tiny, so it's the probability of you even seeing the tick is slim to none. But also, if the tick does not leave its mark, you'll have no idea that you were bitten. There's different ticks carrying different types of Lyme disease. So there's different versions of Lyme disease. For example, the version that I contracted was Rocky Mountain fever, which sounds silly, but it's a type of Lyme disease, and then it evolves into more. And so Lyme does a very good job of hiding from your immune system, and it builds these biofilms to protect itself, so it stays nice and cozy in your immune system. And your immune system generally doesn't know it's there until it's built out so much that it just attacks you. But the problem is by the time your immune system has recognized that it's there, it's built other things with it. And so you have other, like you have Babesia, and you have other diseases that come with Lyme disease. So it's never just Lyme, and because of that, there's no clear like treatment for Lyme. So you and I can have Lyme, but the way we treat it would have to be completely different because it depends on what bacteria your Lyme disease is also carrying in addition to just Lyme.
I guess also it would depend on our bodies as well and how they respond to A, the bacteria, or B, the threat in the system that the bacteria has caused. Because I imagine some people would have a range of differences and other people could have even the opposite. And so you could really be non-comparable, but also the underpinning thing is still Lyme disease. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's absolutely correct.
So this has been going on since 2015. That's 10 years. So tell us, it sounds like it took a long time for you to be able to identify the cluster of symptoms you were having and be able to name it something. Once you had that happen, how did you start to support your body, and how did you know what to do to support your experience?
Well, Meg, I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
It was a lot of crying, a lot of praying. And, Meg, I discovered that the quirkier the treatment sounded, the better it worked.
Interesting.
And so I went from someone who was um, completely for Western medicine to the opposite, to someone who was completely for holistic medicine. And my doctor taught me that disease is just dis-ease in your body. And so once I understood that it's not Lyme disease, take the label away, just figure out what's causing dis-ease in my body, it was easier to mentally handle. And I think that once you're able to mentally handle whatever it is you're going through, your body will follow. And that's, to me, that's the hardest part, is getting the brain to believe that you're okay when the brain just does not want to believe that at all.
And so when you think about breaking that down, because this is an idea that we often see in alternative medicine, is the idea of dis-ease, where you've got the dis and then like a little dash, and then you have the ease. So you're out of ease in your body, rather than looking at through the medical model. Could you help us understand what the dis-ease was for your beautiful body that had it result in a manifestation of symptoms that looked like Lyme? What other things had been happening, or how would you describe the dis-ease?
I think it was just years of neglecting my body, years of overworking, years of overstressing, and years of just focusing on things that brought no value to me, and thinking that they were important. And once I realized that, and I just started to live, and I thought, every day I'm just going to live, whatever that means to me, whatever that means in that moment. And there were moments where living for me was just going to Disneyland, because I live in Southern California. So sometimes it was just going to Disneyland a few times a week, because it helped me forget. Um, that's what I began focusing on, and just living, and not worrying about things that were completely out of my control. And I used to work so much that I would schedule my sleep, and I believe that I neglected my body. I didn't put the proper nutrients into my body. I wasn't eating healthy and organic. I thought that I could just eat whatever I want, as long as I didn't gain weight, that it was okay. And I realized that wasn't the case. And I just think that it was years of all of that, of toxins. And there's so much that we don't realize when we think we're healthy. We don't realize how much throughout the day we're exposed to toxins. We expose ourselves to toxins from the moment we wake up, to the type of toothpaste we use and the type of body wash that we use. And so I began just throwing everything away, every single thing that had ingredients that were harmful. I began eliminating everything from my life, and I just did a huge cleanse of all that. And I think that's something that I would strongly recommend everyone do, whether you're healthy or not, because you don't realize how much that can affect you in the future.
So here's what I think I'm hearing from you, and your job is to tell me if I'm right, and I'm not offended if I'm not right. What I think I'm hearing is 10 years ago in 2015, you were living just pre-onset of symptoms. You were living a fast-paced life where you scheduled your sleep, you discounted your body so long as it kind of fit the clothes you wanted to wear. You didn't not care about it, you just didn't attend to it. You weren't attuned to it. And so you didn't feed it well, and it had accumulated a lifetime up until that point's worth of stress and trauma that hadn't been processed or discharged. And you were unthinkingly using mainstream products which added a load to your body, which your body could handle while it didn't have the tick bite and the transfer of bacteria. But after the transfer of bacteria, it grew inside your beautiful body. And in doing so, it put a load on your body where even daily living was too much for your body to cope with. And so it being your body, had that experience of seizures and fatigue and maybe that experience of fainting or passing out or not coping with your old life. And so you adjusted your old life so that you would have access to a new, different tone of life. And considering that the Lyme disease was still active in you, you found that the reduction of other stresses on your body that people who aren't ill would have, like different types of toothpaste or cleaning products or artificial scents or fragrances, those things a healthy body can handle without the internal pressure. And you have found a reduction in all of those things has eased the load on your body. And now 10 years later, with that overhaul of your life, you have the understanding that the body requires thoughtfulness and care, not just when it gets sick, but before it does get sick, prevention. Now, that was a really long summary, but have I got that right?
Yes, and you that was such an eloquent summary.
Thank you. Okay, well,
that was perfect. Thank you, Mel.
I'm so glad. What it does is it helps all of us to know where you are, and so understand your recommendations or your learning in the context from which you figured it out. And then people can decide, I'll pick this up for myself or I won't, but at least I understand how she got to this space. All right, let's talk about your background in activism and philanthropy. Tell us about that.
So I have this innate desire to change the world, and I have a crazy belief that God created me to do amazing things and to love abundantly. And I believe that when you give an abundance of love to the world, that's how the world changes. And so my whole life I've just been raised to think that that's true. And I think my life experiences have also taught me that that's true. And so I'm still like that today. I genuinely love people. And, people have been there for me when I've needed them. And I just want to do the same for others. I'm grateful. And I just want to do my part to make other people's lives better and happier. And I think that if we all did that, the world would just be a better place. And it doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't take much of your time to do something kind for someone else. And I believe it's a ripple effect. And now you've put that person in a good mood who's now going to perhaps treat their family better or treat the next person better, and it just continues to ripple. But the same goes when you're rude and you insult someone. Now you've put them in a bad mood, and they're going to go home and they're going to lash out on their spouse or their children because of you, and now you've created that negative ripple effect as well. So I just believe in doing the opposite.
You believe in the impact we can have on people.
Yes.
By the way in which we show up.
Yes, and I believe that it works. There was I don't know how much of American news you guys get to watch out there in Australia, but there was several years ago there were riots happening in St. Louis, actually in Ferguson, near St. Louis, in Ferguson, Missouri, and it was a case of police brutality with George Floyd. And I saw the riots on the TV, and Ferguson at that time was about a 5-hour car drive from me. And it just hurt me so much, because I thought of, what about all the little children living in that community, and how devastated must they feel? It looked like a war zone, like something I've never seen in this country. And it just made me sad. And I thought, that's not my city, and I don't have any family there, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't care. And so I prayed about it and I asked God, I said, God, if this is on my heart, guide me. Wake me up tomorrow morning with this desire to do something, and I'll do it. Just lead me, and I'll go wherever you say. And so I woke up the next day and I still had this desire to do something. I thought, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no idea. And so I called up a couple friends and I was like, crazy idea. What are you doing after work today? How about I pick everyone up and we drive out to Ferguson? We'll find a hotel on the way. We'll look for some Facebook groups and see what we can do to bring just love and peace to Ferguson. And so we get out there, and when we got out there, we happened to find a Facebook group, and it was called Painting for Peace. And so we joined a bunch of volunteers, and we just painted murals all over Ferguson. So what happened was all the businesses boarded up their windows, and so we painted the boards, and we just painted them with beautiful verses or flowers and just beautiful things. And we thought, we're just going to beautify a city that's being destroyed. And it was an amazing experience. We didn't think anything of it. We just thought at least we felt, I don't know if it helped, but we felt like maybe. And it ended up turning into something really beautiful. They wrote a book about what we did called Painting for Peace in Ferguson. And then it later evolved into a coloring book where all our murals were pages for children to color. And then they even put our murals in the St. Louis Museum. And so I feel like, when people think that their small act isn't going to make a difference, I think it always does. You might not know it now, or you might not ever see the difference it makes, but it will make a difference. And just because you can't see it in that moment doesn't mean that that something beautiful isn't happening behind the scenes.
Well, that's very wise, isn't it? It is. Sometimes in our greatest despair, it doesn't mean that things have stopped creating or growing. It just is in that moment invisible. And that is a great reminder for us that even in the depths of despair, things are on the move for you and things are organizing, and you never quite know how it's going to start to ease, but you can trust that it will ease and maybe even have some beauty associated with it. And that feels really wise.
Absolutely.
Would you mind talking to us about Girl Talk Summit and how you founded that and what that work entails?
Sure. So I founded Girl Talk Summit because it was something I needed. When I was sick, I couldn't work. Everyone told me to relax, don't work. Well, how can I not work if? So with Lyme disease, none of your treatments, because they're all holistic, there aren't even any Western options, even if you wanted to pursue one. And so everything's holistic, so it's not covered by insurance, and it's all experimental and very expensive. And so people would tell me, well, don't work, don't worry. Well, how do you not worry if you still have your bills? In addition to your bills, you have these incredibly expensive treatments that you don't even know if we're going to work, but you're just throwing everything you can towards obtaining these crazy treatments. And so I found it really difficult to hold a job. So I started working, just doing temp work, so that it wasn't something that required me to be somewhere all day every day, because I quickly learned that I had to hide my seizures from people, and it would scare people. And I would do temp work and they would see that I had a seizure. I would try to go into a bathroom and hide because I could feel before it happened. So I would try to hide in a bathroom. I would try to crawl under tables and hide under tables, and I would just become like a vegetable. And so even though I told you I was going to have a seizure, it didn't really look like a seizure. It almost looked like some sort of drug overdose. So I don't think people really knew or maybe even believed me. And I began just getting fired left and right from even these temp jobs. It's, thanks, you don't have to come back tomorrow. And one flat out told me, I was fired because I had seizures. And so I thought, what do I do? Where do I work? How do I handle this? And I thought, I'm educated. I went to school. I pursued a good education. I'm driven. I'm ambitious. I've lived right. I've done right. I don't hurt people. I do well, and I trust in God. And this is happening to me. And I thought, if it's happening to me, then it's happening to other women. And it may not be Lyme disease. It could be whatever. But the feelings are the same. The desperation is the same. That lack of hope is still there. And so I started looking for successful women in my life and saying, hey, what do you do for work? How do you make money? Teach me about your industry. And whether or not I was excited or wanting to be in their industry, I thought maybe I could find all these different industries that these women I know are in and create something of my own and tailor it for me so that no one could ever fire me, so that I didn't have to be at the mercy of someone else, of a boss, and be in fear of being fired if they found out that I was having a seizure. And so in this journey, I realized, well, gosh, I'm not the only one, as I started speaking to women. And so I thought, women need what I need. And perhaps that was why God allowed me to go through this, because he knew that I would use it for his glory, and I would use it for his good, and I would use it in a way to pick myself up. And in my darkest days when I didn't want to, I would just lift myself up. And if I could do it, then I could teach other women that they could do it. And it doesn't matter what it is going on in your life. It's just those emotions and that pain. And we can grow and we can build together. So I created Girl Talk Summit to teach women how to make money in different industries. And then COVID happened. And so then I couldn't do events and I had to pivot. And then COVID taught me that, it wasn't just women that were experiencing this. It was men. And I had a lot of men wanting to be a part of Girl Talk Summit, but they're like, hey, I don't want to be the only guy in the room. I don't want to be like the weird guy in the room with a bunch of women. And so I pivoted and created something for men and women. I still have Girl Talk Summit, but it was formed out of a need. And I think that's where the greatest thing you can ever form in your life is always been out of need. Because if you need something, there's a chance that other people need it as well and don't know how to build it or obtain it or where to find it at.
I like the way that you describe the calling on your heart and the understanding that if there was you, there were others. And then you walking kind of into that leadership role is a really beautiful thing. And it is something that all of our listeners can do their version of. They have a calling on their heart. They can walk towards understanding they're not the only one. And they can make the thing that they wish they'd seen or they'd experienced whenever their context arose. I just think that's really lovely. I have a note here, Marcela, about financial freedom. And I understand that you are what we would call financially free, even though you have a chronic health condition. Is that an accurate reflection?
Yes, and I think it's because I was able to mentally get in a place where I didn't make excuses. And my drive would not allow me to quit. It'll never allow me to quit. I'll tell you, I'll be right back. I'm going to have an episode. Give me 20 minutes. I'll be right back. And I'll jump back into it like nothing. I do not allow it to stop me from working. I do not allow it to stop me from growing, from building. And I have a strong why. I'm a mom. I have an amazing husband who's incredible and just a dream of a man. But I want to be a good role model for my daughter. And I want my daughter to know that she can have it all. She doesn't have to pick. She can be the mom and the wife and the girl boss. And everything she wants to be, that we're not confined just to one thing. And so, I do it for her.
Mm. What's your definition of financial freedom? What does it mean to you to be financially free? When we use those words, it can mean all kinds of things, but what does it mean to you that you have created financial freedom for yourself?
For me, financial freedom is the ability to never have to take time away from my family to go work. The ability to be able to put my family first always, without struggling or wondering if we'll put food on the table. For me, it's being able to work from home, creating something that I don't have to leave the house unless I want to, unless I'm having an event, but I get to work from home. I get to participate in my daughter's activities, and my daughter will never take a back seat to work. And for me, I'm the richest person in the world, having that opportunity. And I see a lot of women, a lot of moms, or just a lot of people in general that have to go work a 9 to 5 that they hate, just to barely pay the bills, to come home late and not have the time to spend with their family, and to not be able to have dinner with their family or play with their children. And I feel like I don't have to worry about any of that. I don't have to sacrifice any of that. So to me, that's as free as you can be. That's the ultimate dream for me.
What do you think the wisdom in that is?
I think the wisdom would be, pursue whatever's in your heart. Pursue whatever's in your heart. Don't chase money, because it will never be enough if you're chasing the money. But chase your dream. Chase what's put in your heart to do. And I believe that whatever's put in your heart to do is your destiny. And if you're doing your destiny, the money will follow. Because I don't believe that God makes mistakes. And I believe that whatever God puts in your heart is what he will use to bless you financially, to bless you and your family in every way. And so I think the wisdom is just follow what's in your heart. The money will come. Just keep pushing and follow what's in your heart. And the money will come, even if you're not sure. When I created Girl Talk Summit, I had no idea if it would make money. I didn't do it to make money. I just thought maybe someday it could. Maybe someday I can build something. But my bigger need was just helping women. And now it's helping people. But I think that when your intentions are true, people see that and people want to gravitate towards you, and people want to see you grow and excel, and people will be your biggest cheerleader.
I'm going to do a thing that I call the yeah buts, because I can feel the audience listening, not all of them, a couple. And I can hear their yeah buts. Yeah, but Marcela, I am that person who has to work an 8 till 5 or a 9 to 5. And in being a person who works that type of work, I do change the way in which I engage with my child. My child is sometimes my priority in the workday and sometimes can't be my priority in the workday. I don't have a dream to run my own business. I am happy being an accountant, for example, working for a company. How does your wisdom here connect to my context, my experience?
I think that not everyone has a dream to run their own company, and not everyone has my dream. And I think that that's okay. And I think you just have to pursue what's a dream for you. And perhaps it's too stressful thinking about playing with your child when you have to pay your bills and work during the middle of the day. And that's completely understandable. And I think that that's okay too. It's okay. But I think that you just need to figure out what you prioritize and be okay with it, and pursue the number one thing that's on your list. And I think that for everyone, I believe that most of us don't work for fun. Most of us don't work just because out of boredom. We work because we want to give our loved ones a better life, because we want to take care of those we care about. And so whatever it is that you're doing, I think that you're doing because you have someone you love. And just focusing on that person that you love and giving that person you love what they need, I think that you'll be happy, and you'll have your own version of financial freedom. And I think it means different things to different people. And I don't think that mine is true or right for everyone else. It just happens to be true and right for me.
I think that is a really beautiful expression of the definition, the openness of the definition of a term like that. The other way I thought that you might have answered this, and I'm curious to know if you agree, is that freedom is important for all the humans, a sense of freedom and a sense of choice. And perhaps if your dream looks different to Marcela's, which it will, because you are you and you should be you, you are the perfect you, no one else can you like you do. But there is a way to look at your freedom in general. How do you add a sense of freedom to your life? Because there's a real power in freedom and choice, and that sense of efficacy or agency that you have to be able to impact your world and the way in which you live. And I wondered if that's where you were going to go with what you were saying, Marcela.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that's completely true. And I mean, I think for me, freedom is so important. For me, freedom is, I remember when I was sick, and I would go to the doctor, and they would tell me, there's this treatment that it may work, it may not work, we don't know, but it's $15,000, and that's one treatment. And then once you're done with that, then you can start the other treatment, and that's $25,000. Meg, when you're not working, that's a lot of money. I mean, even if you are working, it's still a lot of money. And so I think that people don't realize how important it is to be financially free, to save. And even if you don't value money in a greedy way, it's still good to work towards being financially free, because you never know when life will happen, whether it's to you or to a loved one. And you want to be in a position where you can always help people you love and tell them, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll take care of it. We're going to take care of you. But how awful would it feel to know that your loved one desperately needs a treatment and they can't afford it and you can't afford it, but their life depends on it? I never want to be in that spot.
So how could somebody start to create financial freedom in order to have those kind of rainy day reserves, to be able to have a literal pot of gold in the bank that we can use if someone that we love needs it? What's a way that anybody could do that?
I think it starts with the smallest little increments. And I think that sometimes people think it means, you can't do it until you've saved a very large amount of money, or you have a very large amount of money to put aside. But I don't go to Starbucks, every day of the week. Maybe go 3 days of the week instead of the 5 days. And then the other 2 days, whatever you would have spent at Starbucks, put it in the bank. Don't touch it. Forget about it. Pretend it's not there. And I think that if you start doing that every week, just setting aside, whether it's $20, $100, it doesn't sound like much, but at the end of the year, you're going to have a nice little chunk of money saved up. And then once you have that money saved up, you can decide, do you want to keep it in the bank or do you want to invest it? I'm a big believer of investing. I love investing in crypto. And so I think that you should always have money in the bank, because I think cash is king. But I also think that it's good to diversify your funds and put it in other areas, but safely and wisely. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I think that you'll realize how easy and how fun it is to save money. And I think that once you've reached, Your first 10,000 is always the hardest. But once you've saved that, well, you don't want to touch it. You don't want it going down. It's an excitement to see how much higher it can go. And so I think it becomes much easier than people realize. It sounds scary, but once you start, it's really easy.
Do you remember in the 90s, there was a segment on Oprah that for me was really poignant, but I feel like the world really took notice of this, where she was talking about financial literacy. And she was talking about how the average American, which would have translated to Australians, how the average American could only survive 3 months if they lost their job before they would be homeless. It was a really strong, clear statement. And I remember thinking, how can you lose everything in 3 months? And this type of financial literacy that you're really sharing the wisdom of here kind of fits into that segment that sort of really stayed with me in the 90s all the way through to the 2025s. I'm really curious how you see those two things joining together, financial literacy and the ability to cope in a crisis.
Oh, I think that they go hand in hand, Meg. If you get a chronic disease like Lyme disease, and it's all cash, and you have your monthly bills that you've budgeted for, but now you have all these bills that you did not budget for, and it's not just a one-time bill, it's every month. You're spending thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, on treatments. Or you could choose to not do it, but you know that if you don't do it, death is knocking on your door. You're going to find a way to make that money. And I've met a lot of people with Lyme disease who've had to pull out equity in their home because they don't have the money for treatments. I've met a lot of people who they can't hold jobs. Their marriage is failing due to financial stress. They've pulled out their equity in their home. They're losing everything. And so I think it's foolish. I was once foolish in thinking that I'll always be okay. And I realized when that happened, I realized how foolish I was. Not only how foolish I am, but how foolish so many people are, because we think we're invincible. And we think that life won't happen to us if we don't deserve it. But, Meg, life happens to everyone. And I believe that it happens on purpose to propel you towards your destiny. And if it did not happen to me, I would not be where I'm at today. I would not have created what I created today, because I wouldn't have seen the need. I wouldn't have had that desire in my heart. And I would have pursued a very stable, normal job. And I would have probably been content and not have prepared for the future. But I think they go hand in hand, because you should save for that rainy day. That rainy day comes for everyone, and it just because it hasn't come yet. And I'm not some, I don't believe in thinking negative and being all doom and gloom. But that rainy day will come. And if it doesn't come for you, it's going to come for someone you love.
Well, it comes for everyone. Sorry to interrupt. You please say that again.
No. Oh, no, it's okay. I was just saying, if it's not coming for you, then it's going to come for someone you love. And at least put yourself in a position to help your loved ones. And I think of the person you love the most in this world, desperately needing money immediately, right now, this second. And you saying, I didn't work hard enough. I didn't believe in saving. I didn't believe in investing, because I didn't ever think this would happen. How selfish and how cruel to say that to your loved one.
The reality is the human condition. It doesn't like to think about the worst. It doesn't like to dwell on the threats that are there for nearly anybody. We rely on a body to stay strong and able to work, and we rely on a stable economy so we can draw a wage, and we rely on the weather to not tear down our house, and we rely on people to not riot and to keep ourselves safe in our country, not to go to war, and all of those things. If we're living in a way where those things are not particularly visible, we can be lulled into a false sense of reality. But the thing is that I think you can't hide from life. Eventually, you're going to have a difficult context. And I think the wisdom here, Marcela, is we would like you to accept the inevitability of a tricky hand being dealt to every single listener at some point from now into the future. And you and I would love them to have the wisdom of the rainy day fund that allows them to feel steady and secure like a port in a storm. I think that's what we're circling here, is the wisdom of safety nets, because life happens. What do you think? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think that there is no harm and no harm in at least saving. Save, and then if you never need it, then you're off for a great retirement.
Right. And also
I think that
someone
there's
you
so
love
many.
will need it. Somebody always needs it. And I think you said something not that long ago about the impact you would have as a parent or as a loved one to somebody else who could really have done with your leadership through financial, what is a good word? Literacy. And when there is your inability to support them or help them, that it would be a heavy burden, I imagine.
Absolutely. And I have this belief that as a mom, it is my responsibility as a parent now to be a vessel that creates generational wealth. And if I don't do so, I will feel like I couldn't even work hard enough for my daughter and her children and future generations. And I think that someone has to be in every generational line, there has to be someone that's willing to step up and say, I'm going to do this. I'm at least going to try to do this. And that attempt blesses so many generations.
And people in the work that you're doing, right? And intergenerational wealth is financial, and also it is more than that. It is the childhood you give your children, and it is the way in which you respond to conflict, or those bumps and bruises you have interrelationally with other people as you grow. It is also the way in which you handle hard things and you show up for each other, and the leadership that you model. Intergenerational wealth includes financial elements, and it's not limited to financial elements. And I think you and I talked earlier about how when you kind of listen to that heart calling that you have that belongs just to you, and you follow that heart calling and you live a life that matches that, that is a type of wealth, I think, that you model for your loved ones as well. And so there is kind of richness in lots of different ways with the way in which you lead your life. What do you think?
I agree. I think that there's so many different aspects to leaving behind blessings for other generations, and it is so much more than just money. It's your character, it's your drive. It's we teach our daughter, how you do anything is how you do everything. And she's 3.5, but we've already started teaching her to make her bed first thing in the morning, because I think that's important. It's important to make your bed in the morning. It's important to have discipline. And if I have a journal that I've written for her with advice and dating advice, pregnancy advice, every different topic, cooking, anything, in case something should ever happen to me. Mom's left a handbook, an instructional handbook for life.
A legacy she's left, Mum.
And so I think and I think, like you said, it's so much more than money's a part of it, but it's so much more than that as well. And it's like a circle, it's a wheel, and you have to make sure it's balanced, and you have to make sure you're filling every piece in that wheel so that it can roll properly. Because if you're just focused on the money, well, then you're neglecting the rest of it, and it defeats the purpose of working hard to build money for those you love if you're neglecting those you love.
Now, I have a last question, a frontier question for you, Marcela. What are you working on at the moment? Because we never get it done. And are you noticing any particular scars that are yet to fully heal from the battle wounds of the last 10 years or perhaps further across your life?
So right now, I've mostly been focused on Ambition Unleashed, which is my podcast. I do business masterminds. And so, I don't think that I have. I think, thankfully, I'm at a place where I'm healed and comfortable with where I'm at with my health. I do have in the back of my mind, there's always that little piece of fear. What if your seizures come back? What if they're really bad? And I try not to dwell on that. I just try to focus on being healthy and living in the moment, because if they come back the way they were before, then there's not much I can do about it. So I'll worry about it at that moment and just focus on being happy and healthy. But I don't know that I have any, at least any scars that I recognize. I think it's just still focusing on being as healthy as I can. I'm really trying hard. I love to be a mommy again. And so I think probably my only scar would be not allowing the fear, I guess, of my previous health issues hinder me from having, a healthy pregnancy. But that's one of my biggest, one of the biggest things that I'm working on in my life would be to be a mommy again, I think.
And so onwards we go. We've come to that time in the podcast and also in the wisdom that you've been sharing, where we've done a full loop, where we've recognized that where you started 10 years ago with a body that was really getting your attention with what it needed and had to teach you from a wisdom perspective. And then all of the things that unfolded from that, where you needed to learn and step into a different way of living in order to support your dear self, and having that complete. And then the next loop opens, which is, I'd like to expand my family. I'd like to grow into a person that has more than one child. And I have lots of questions about, can I do it? Will my body do it? What will that look like? What will that mean? And then off we go on the next journey of life. And that is, I think, a very realistic experience of what the growth journey looks like, which is these questions and this desire, and then the unfolding. And we can't see what's going to happen before it's happened. And that takes our courage as we step out of the light and into the darkness, waiting for that light to kind of turn on. And so it's a really beautiful place for us to leave you, which is, thank you for showing us the wisdom of that loop. And then thank you for showing us or sharing with us the next loop that you're looking to explore. It's been really beautiful talking with you, Marcela.
Thank you, Meg. It's been such an honor, and I'm so grateful to have been on your show. And you're such an amazing host with this just incredible, angelic energy. And
thank you.
You're just absolutely amazing for doing this, and for just spreading wisdom to people, and the listeners are very lucky to have you.
Thank you so much on behalf of me and our beautiful listeners that have joined us today. Thank you for listening to another episode of Wisdom Stripes. Our guest, Marcela Navarrete. Did I say that correctly, Marcela? Navarrete.
You did,
Navarrete? Navarrete. Our guest, Marcela Navarrete, shared her powerful journey of resilience navigating life with Lyme disease. She also gave us valuable insights into how she reframed her approach to work while living with a chronic illness, and how she designed financial freedom and what that looks like, means, feels like for her, and what that might look like in your life. And she particularly encouraged us to be financially literate and make sure that we save up for a rainy day or a context that takes us out of our normal daily life so that we are prepared and supported for ourselves and others. Be sure to check out Marcela's podcast, Ambition Unleashed, where she interviews entrepreneurs and founders on how they have successfully navigated their businesses. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe and please leave us a 5-star rating and review. It helps us grow. It teaches the algorithms that this is the kind of conversation you want more of your network and loved ones to know about, and therefore it's going to start to suggest us. And we really want to lift and brighten the world, one wisdom stripe at a time. So you doing that literally means the world to me and my guests. If you'd like to keep up with me online, I'm at Meg Tuohey Official on Instagram. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Wisdom Stripes, where we are your no-nonsense, fierce fairy godmothers turning pain and confusion into clarity and confidence. See you later, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Wisdom Stripes. Follow me on @Meg Tuohey Official and leave a comment and review. I'm looking forward to meeting you here next time on Wisdom Stripes.